Hey there, you've come to the right place if you've got a challenge in the medical careers process in Australia. I'm Dr. Anthony Llewellyn. I'm a psychiatrist here in Australia, um, otherwise known as the career doctor. More importantly to you, um, apart from me being a psychiatrist here, I've spent the last 25 plus years really quite focused on the medical human resources and just the health human resources context. um, I've got a lot of experience initially running hundreds of recruitment processes, designing interview panels and selection processes as well. And more recently, switching over to helping you, the individual doctor, with any challenge you might have with the medical career process, whether that's a document like a CV or a college application, um, obviously job interview preparations for high stakes and even just long-term career coaching, etc. I'm actually a member of a doctors coaching community here in Australia that we've established over the last year and a bit. And it's really good to join you again in the regular office hours. So we're going to do what we normally do, is go through some of the questions that you've posed for me on YouTube so I can clear the backlog and stay on top of that. I'm, if we've got time allowed, I'm going to just show you a free tool that I've developed that may help you with, actually a set of tools using AI that might help you with specific aspects of the career challenge. Again, if you're watching me on YouTube or Facebook, you can make a comment or a question. You can also do so on LinkedIn. I'm just going to get my LinkedIn feed off to the side. You won't be able to see this setup. So I can just check on that in case someone does ask a question there. So let's, yes, they don't actually automatically get notifications from LinkedIn specifically. So good to join you today. I see we've got a couple of people logged in already. Hey, how you doing? Let me know if you've got any questions. Be good to engage as we always do. Let's chat. Yep, cool. All right, so community. Let's start at the bottom time. And I should share my screen. Remember how to do that. Cool. Myself over there. Oh, okay. So we've got a few at the top there from a few days ago. We just might go down to the bottom here, and I had cleared the backlog from 5 months. So no, we're still going there. Yeah, okay. Comment on the ZD resume builder. Um, yeah. Look, yeah. Look, I used to like ZD. I have left the review up for anyone interested, but I receive lots of complaints about their charging policy. You can cancel subscription. It's not the easiest. It's not the most transparent. At least that's the last time I checked. Uh, uh, um, and I don't really like what they've done in terms of changing it. Although I think they might have gone like the last time I haven't looked at it for a while. It's not my favorite. Uh, Not my favorite CV builder. Visual C is the one. Visual CV is the one that I recommend. So, yeah. Well, I wouldn't say I receive lots, uh, but I've seen lots of other complaints. Yeah. Um, okay. Yeah, a lot of them, a lot of the CV builders will allow for you to kind of go in and start using it. But then if you want to produce or print it off, sometimes you'll get like a limited restriction around the templates, or sometimes at that point they'll ask you to pay for it. So yeah, they can feel a bit like a bait and switch. But you know, they are very cheap, most of them. And if you become a client of mine, I've got an even better deal for you. So if you're thinking of using Visual CV, get onto my website and see what the options are to work with me on that. Cardiologist 89. And thanks everyone who's joined us. We've got a few people online. Feel free, if you've got a question or a comment about the careers process in Australia, just stick it in the chat and we can have a talk. So cardiologist 89, I am 34 years and have 5 years experience as an interventionalist cardiologist. What's the best way to get a job in Australia? What's the right pathway? How much is the salary? Da, 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 da. Yeah, look, so I'm going to apply my rule here. I only answer one specific question on a YouTube question because otherwise it gets into lots of detail. It also gets into individual circumstances and another question and another question, and that's where I I have my individual clarity call if you want further advice. Uh, um, so um, so let's just answer you here. Hi. The options for SIMGs to work in Australia as cardiologists are limited. I am aware of several who have gotten through the RACP college process and cannot find a post. To answer your other queries, I have strategy available. Yeah, using a shortcut there. Cool. So we've got a question from Gareth. How long does the recruitment process take to get your specialty recognised? How long does the process take to get your specialty recognised in Australia? So, okay, I was going to say, what's your specialty? It depends on your specialty. With hematology, that's the RACP. Once you submit your application, it's about 3 to 4 months for an interview and result. So this is like pretty much every question I get asked. There's kind of a nuanced answer to it. The short answer, it's about 3 to 4 months by the College of Physicians. The longer answer is it actually depends on you a little bit because if you go to the RACP website, and I'm not going to go there because the form is a Word doc and yeah, well, we could look at it, but the point being is that once you go to their website, you'll see when you read through all the information about how to apply, it's not an easy process to apply. They want, and they should be requesting lots of information. So what I often find with people who come to me with their applications is that they've spent a fair bit of time. They've had to go and collect a whole lot of documents. That you need to understand why the college is asking certain questions. Sometimes they don't. The RACP is pretty clear with their form, but there are bits of it where I think they don't quite guide you around the types of information they're looking for, particularly around your training experience. So Yeah, so it can take people. I've had people take over a year, but it certainly is a year to fill in the application. Normally doesn't take that long, but it usually takes people a couple of months because it's can get a bit frustrating, and you usually can't just sit down and do it in an afternoon, basically. Um, so what I do recommend is if you're looking for some assistance with uh, the um, the process, then under document services here, we do have the specialist pathway application review service. It's generally when people contact me about specialist pathway application, it's generally a lot better if they contact me earlier, because if we can sit down and go through the application and help you with that, it usually makes the interview go a lot easier. But some people come to me after the fact, just for some coaching for the interview. Ideally, if you want to do both, then I'd recommend my VIP program, but there are a couple of options for assistance there. Yeah, so short answer, 3 to 4 months, but usually a bit longer because it's partly dependent on you. Thanks. Good question. Thanks. Thanks, Gareth. So hematology is under the RACP. Lots of things are under the RACP. Cool. So I've done two at the bottom. And when we're down to 4 months lag. Let's look at what's at the top. Okay. Well, this is this interesting question. I don't purport to be a medical HR expert for all the however many countries in the world. Um, you know, um, so what I do know is that in terms of the fellowship of the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists, get my own college right. Um, uh, yeah, traditionally there have been lots of doctors with those sort of specialist degrees go to uh, the Middle East. I've not really heard of anyone going back to India with that or going to India with that. So traditionally the FRA NZCP is accepted in a range of countries, but I am not an expert on every um, country's process. But typically, the kind of Western specialty degrees from the US, Australia, Canada, UK, etc., tend to have high value in other places. We can debate the bias around that, but that has been the traditional view. Particularly, the Gulf states, particularly, have often recruited a lot of specialists from places like Australia and the UK. I don't know how difficult the process is. Imagine it's similar to how we do it here, maybe with a bit less paperwork. Possibly as other countries mature in their medical systems, the process of someone else going there becomes harder because they've raised their own standards. Hello, I'm an anaesthetist from Nepal. I finished my MD in 2020. How can I get into Australia? So Abhi Pradhan. So as you can see from the video, you are not eligible for the expedited pathway. So it's the traditional specialist pathway. And I've got like see my playlist, like a 7 video playlist on this, or you can go to my website, and I've got a free course which has the playlist, but also some additional information in it over here where guides you through the kind of general steps of the process. Squeeze that down. I think that's there you go. Okay. Cool. So if I can fix why this is so boxy. Maybe if I put this over here. Bear with me a second. I'm just putting up the size of the screen share. Let's share it again. Meanwhile, we've got a question from ET. Yeah, so behavior type questions, very common questions in medical job interviews in Australia and pretty much around the world. So I would first, if you're wanting some free help, go to my YouTube channel. There are plenty of videos. In fact, let me find them while we're talking. Um, um, there are plenty of videos on my channel about how to answer behavior questions. You'll see, share the screen. Again. So we've got, that's probably that's my most recent video as part of the brief sort of interview prep series that you can do. Steps you through an approach to past behavior questions. Well, actually, that's the most recent one from the series. So you'll see people talk on the internet about the star or the car sometimes, situation, task, action, result. I step it up a little bit more in my teaching, and if you do my course or coaching with me, I teach you a much more sophisticated way for it. But the main idea here is you can actually often predict the types of behavior questions. The behavior questions are often quite predictable as they are based on asking questions around the selection criteria. So, and the selection criteria are often very similar, common as well. So often you'll have one like a selection criteria around teamwork. Okay. So, and so you can prepare answers using a framework such as STAR. See my copious videos on the channel. So, as I said, you might have one about teamwork, for example, and you'll find that. So then you need to think about what examples do I need to prepare. So the common things around teamwork are usually about improving the function of a team or resolving conflict in a team. Conflict is kind of probably the most common question that's asked in a past behavior format in a medical job interview. So common that people are starting to not do it because people are expecting it, but it's still one you definitely want to prepare and answer. Yeah, good question, ET. Now just watching the time because I do want to show you my tools. Let's go back to going to work for me. Yeah. Yeah. So what have we got next? I've replied to that one. Okay, I thought I replied to that one. Hi, as per the video, you are not eligible expedited pathway type, so it's the specialist pathway. The thing I was going to say before I finish my answer to that question is that every college is a bit different in its approach. The Australian New Zealand College of Anaesthetists, ANZCA, you want to go and look again at their criteria. One thing that they have some criteria around, which is often confusing for people, is that there's a minimum months of training that you need to have done in anaesthesia. And it depends on whether you've done it in a comparable, not competent, comparable country. The comparable country list is the New Zealand version of Australia's competent authority list. However, it's bigger. It's still biased towards Western kind of countries, but it's a bigger list. So if you've done your training in a comparable country, they want at least 36 months. If you've done it in a non-comparable country, of which Nepal, is one of, then you need 48 months. So a big problem with anaesthetists from India is that the general qualification you need in India is an MD of 3 years. So that of itself, Nepal, I should say, that of itself is not going to make you eligible. Good question again. So, kia ora back. A New Zealand medical student here. I'm curious how it would apply to do an Australian internship. I'll answer this one now. P201, if this is possible, any help would be appreciated. It's a good question. Due to our reciprocal recognition process, I guess you'd call it, between Australia and New Zealand, you are eligible to apply via the various internship. And I'll do every year I do a guide to internship on my blog. You will be towards the bottom of the priority list, but not at the very bottom. And it's not like you're an international student. You may find that the hospitals let me just say this, you'll be towards the bottom of the priority categories, but not very bottom. So it's completely, and the same thing goes in reverse. Australian medical students can apply to do their internship in New Zealand. I'm certainly aware of a number of New Zealand medical students who have come to Australia for it's definitely a thing. Okay. Should just check on LinkedIn in case I've. Okay, good. Now, okay. Well, let's do the tools. Let me just let me get rid of this chat for a sec. Okay, so here are my tools. Nope. I'm gonna move where I am if I can figure that out. I use Restream for my streaming. It's quite good, but I do find you kind of change things and then it changes it back. So anyway, Um, there I am in the right corner now, I think. Maybe even I need to actually. I probably should go maybe up here. Might be even better. Okay, so I'm always into technology, and so I like playing around with various tools. Obviously, AI is the big thing at the moment. There's lots of ways of engaging with AI around the medical careers process. I find you can, even with things like Chat GPT, you can do some pretty high quality stuff. I've been getting these ads on YouTube about, people can tell if your resume has been written by Chat GPT. Well, they probably can don't, if you just allow Chat GPT to do it. But um, uh, ChatGPT and all the other models are rapidly improving, and they're becoming more authentic sounding in their approach. And I do find that using AI can help to kind of get you started and do a lot of the heavy lifting, so to speak. So on my website, and I'll put a link in the description to the video once I've hopped off live, but it's basically this. I wonder if I can put this in my. I put this in the ticker actually. Uh, Now I've got to find the ticker. Now where is my ticker gone? Click on this one. Okay, got the ticker. All right. Well, we won't bother with that. It's basically you can see there in the URL up the top, rmotools.advancedmed.com.au. So this is completely free. Some of them just to help me with my lead capturing process. You've got to sign up for, but you can actually try a couple of them without even having to sign up. So let's say you're preparing your CV for a new RMO job or something like that in Australia, and you're struggling with that little summary that should always be on the top of your resume. Well, I've got a little tool to help you build that kind of personal statement. And this statement can also be useful for your why you question in the interview as well, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously at all, but obvious to me. So, yeah, so hi, I'm the personal statement builder. I'm going to be using my formula um, to help build it. So, yes, I am ready to get started. Um, okay, so I'm going to tell it that I have 3 years of broad clinical experience, mainly in medicine and critical care terms. Um, I have been focusing in on my anesthetic skills, um, going with the American English there. And I am capable of placing arterial lines and doing basic airway procedures. Okay. Um, Ask a few more questions. Um, yes, I am applying for an anesthetic RMO role, so I have completed terms in anesthetics. ED times 3 and ICU. So I am capable of performing basic roles. So I enjoy aesthetics due to its fast-paced nature, technical and communication challenges. I have always enjoyed learning about human physiology. Run out of free guesses. Oh dear. So we're gonna have to do a sign up. I don't forget which emails I've used to sign up to this. Uh, Obviously that one. uh, Wants me to type a password. I will delete that afterwards. In fact, I won't even save it. I actually could have just logged in, couldn't I? All right, let's just log in. I think it's gonna log me in. Let me just go to my password manager. Yeah. Sorry if I'm ignoring any questions people might have. I will come back and answer them. Just trying to figure out how to log into this thing. X. Right password. Should have logged in ahead of time, shouldn't I? Okay, and has it got us our Well, I'll have to give more uses for that because it's no good if trying it for free if it doesn't get you all the way. That's probably a bit of a bait and switch from me. Let's try this again. Okay. Yes, I am. And before we get into it, I might just check if there's any more questions so that I'm not ignoring you. Nope. Okay. What did I say? Have 3 years broad experience, mainly in medicine and critical care rotations. I recently done an anesthetics term where I performed basic airway procedures and learnt to perform arterial lines and regional blocks, maybe. Okay. I have done 3 ED terms, 1 ICU, and now 1 aesthetics. So I am familiar with the basic requirements anesthetic RMO role. What did we say? Have always been fascinated by. Again, it's the more information you give, the better it'll produce a result for you. Obviously, I love the fast-paced nature of anesthetics, as well as the technical and communication challenges. There you go. 3 years of extensive experience in medicine and critical care, bring a wealth of knowledge to the anaesthetic senior resident medical officer role. One thing I find with my clients is, we didn't go into medicine to become some creative writer. And so, not everyone's good at the sort of the language and the selling, etc. That's something that I have some skill in, but not everyone has that. And so this really helps to get you started. Does it feel too much? You can always adjust it if you need to. But I think that's a fairly decent, summary there. And I could probably improve it a little bit, but the point being, it's your content. It's just being refashioned. So and obviously you have to check it in case it does a hallucination or something at some point. So yeah, there are the tools. We've also got we've got one to help you with work achievements. One to help you with selection criteria, and one to generate some interview questions. I might demonstrate this one next time we're on. Reminds me, I will be away next Friday, so there won't be any office hours next Friday. Cool. All right. So we might just hop back to the questions. Let's have a look at the chat, see if we've got any more questions there. No. Questions on LinkedIn? Nope. Yeah. So knock off a few more questions while we can then. Go down the bottom. Is there any age limit for applying for the specialist pathway? No. There are some age restrictions for visas in Australia, but not for applying for the specialist pathway. And there are some ways of. There's this. Forgetting the age now. I think it's 35. You really need to talk to a migration agent to get proper advice. So it does become difficult after a certain age, which I believe is 35. But there are ways. It takes a lot of places. It takes you till 35 to become a specialist. So there are ways of applying for visas still past that kind of initial age limit. But speak to a migration agent. Can I do an internship in Australia after completing the AMC Part 1? Please review my other videos on why it is largely impossible for IMGs to do internship. Fascinating how people still ask me that question. I guess depends which video you start watching, I guess. But essentially there are options for if you've not done an internship elsewhere to apply here, but they're extremely limited, and you're much better off getting some work experience in your own country and then applying for RMO positions. That itself is quite difficult, but not nearly as difficult as getting an internship. Again, I'll just copy paste this one. is the medical school transcript needed to apply for Australian doctor job after AMC 1? No, because you would have verified via the AMC and EPIC already. So one consistent rule is that if you want to work here as a doctor in Australia, regardless of whether it's the standard pathway, common authority pathway, specialist pathway, short-term training and a medical specialty pathway, and now the expedited pathway, you will need to have gotten your primary, and if you've got specialist qualifications, your other qualifications verified via the Australian Medical Council, which outsources it to the ECFMG, which is ECFMG. They used to call it EPIC. I think they're moving it to something called OASIS now, but most people still call it EPIC. So the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates, which is, I think, based in New York, which is a bit of a worry given what Donald Trump is doing at the moment with, crash and burn through everything. I don't know. I think it's largely funded outside of the US government, but hopefully it doesn't fall over because of that stuff. And they used to have a thing called EPIC, which I forget what EPIC was, what the acronym stands for, but I think they're now moving to, it's still the Electronic Portfolio of International Credentials. But I think they're moving to something else called OASIS or something at some point. But it's the thing that, the international thing that verifies people's qualifications around the world. Cool. So that's probably enough at the bottom there. Go back to the top. I still have to go back and see what you mean by the timestamp 142. So I'll come back to that. That looks like a quick thanks. Did that not happen? Thanks a lot. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. It is interesting what sort of document different countries request, and the funny thing and kind of typical of Australian culture, we say one thing, we mean another. So generally, typically, when you're asked for your document here in Australia, you're asked for your CV. However, they do not want to see a proper CV. If they see something more than, depending on what, if it's a junior job, something more than 4 pages, and a senior job, something more than 6 pages, they go, they don't know what, they didn't follow the instructions. When in fact they have. What we're after is more of a resume. The only distinction between a resume, which is something where you tailor everything to the job, we do want to see all the clinical jobs you've worked, so you can't omit any of those. But essentially, it is a medical resume in Australia, not a medical CV. But that's typical here in Australia. We say one thing and mean something slightly differently. I've got another chat. Let's go back to the here. The overlay. Someone just saying hi. Hi there. I hope I've got your name right. Abizith. How you doing? Do you have any questions that you wanted to ask? We've got a few more minutes before I close off office hours today. While you're pondering that. Hi, Doc. I'm really confused about it. Please guide me. I did my medical degree from another country, and I came back to my country and did 1 year internship. Now I'm preparing for AMC1. but I don't have general registration of any country because if I want my home country registration, then I also have to give exams in my home country to be registered. So my question is, before applying for the job after passing AMC 1, do they need home country license? I don't think I can definitively answer you here on YouTube. The medical board does have a standard where they want to see that you wants to see that you have fully qualified elsewhere, and which is why they ask about internship. I think if you haven't completed it, if you don't have general registration, then it's likely to be a big barrier for you. Again, if you've got any further questions on this, I would recommend my strategy call. Because this is where, like I say, it gets into individual circumstances. Obviously, people don't want to talk all about their individual details on the web. And there's often a series of questions when these questions come up. If we've okay, we've got a question from did I get your name right? You're a medical student from New Zealand. I find it frustrating that there's no concrete guide for New Zealand medical graduates to come to Australia for internship. I don't think you should be that frustrated. It's a good point. I mean, I think I could do a blog post on it. It would be fairly short. It's fairly niche as well. Oh, I'm glad I got your name right. Basically, you can follow the guidance from the various states and territories here for applications. Not a lot that's different. The one issue is you won't have the what do they call it? I'll have to just go to the advanced med guide. There's the intern number. Just trying to think of the official where I'm looking, my own blog site. I now research things using my own blog site, which is interesting. So somewhere here at the top, I usually say, don't forget about the intern placement number. So where are we? We're over here answering a question. But this is okay. So the systems they won't sort of have like a required field for that. Well, they shouldn't, because they know that New Zealand medical students will be applying. But yeah, I might. It's a good point. I might pull together a post. I'll put it on the list. New Zealand intern post Actually, that's a good point. If anyone watching my channel is a New Zealand doctor who's come over and done their internship, it might actually be easier if I just interviewed someone and asked them about the process and what they had to do. I suspect, as I say, it's just following the normal process that all the Australian interns do. Actually, while I had that post up, let's just talk about the priority issue then. Um, so you'll see here. These are all the key dates for last year. There's my video, yada, 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 yada. Let's go down to past the tips. So we look at New South Wales, which is the jurisdiction I used to oversight. This is their networks. You can see they've got over 1,000 positions now, well over 1,000. I didn't quite get there when I was in charge, but I knew we would one day. A bit about the stacking. Can you do it? Basically, you can't. So here we go. So someone else on my YouTube community was asking, maybe it was you, Abzith, asking about New Zealand. So your priority category. So we've got now. I'm just going to have to remember how this works. Oh yeah, so this breaks it. Okay, so this is a little bit confusing, but basically, if you're Australian New Zealand citizen, Australian permanent resident, you fit into categories 1 to 3. If you're a graduate of New South Wales, that makes you priority category 1. If you're, I think the 4 is for, that's for non-citizens, so students who come here to study from elsewhere. If you're a graduate of New Zealand or interstate university, so you're equivalent to someone from Queensland that's done their internship. So it's actually not that bad. It's not even near the bottom, really. Then you're priority category 2, and they like you can see up. So you can see the report up here somewhere. Or was it down here? No, they did. They do have a report. Hetty does provide a report. I think in one of my previous guides I might have even put it up. But basically, if we get back down to this priority list here on it, yep, they will definitely get down to category 3, and they'll still have vacancies left over, and they're often giving the remainder to the international students who graduates in New South Wales and other places. So if you're an international student in New Zealand, then you're category 5. If you're a New Zealand citizen, then you're category 2. And so that's how it works. And you apply through the same process. So you can even go and have a look at some of the guides. Now, you also have to understand that there's the priority category, but then there's the recruitment processes. So to maximize your chances, you want to go for what's called rural preferential recruitment. And you can look at the other states, but it's similar. So why don't we just do one more Victoria? So here's Victoria. They'll probably go to 1,000 this year, I would suspect. So here's their priority groups. So Australian citizens or permanent residents and New Zealand citizens graduating from Victorian medical schools. And then PR and graduates of interstate universities, which doesn't include New Zealand. So New Zealand in this one, no. So you're in priority group. Oh, that's the rural priority, sorry. Then we've got the general priority groups. Yes, you go into priority group 3. So with Victoria actually competing with the international students more, so you're not as bumped up. Um, yeah, so that's how it kind of works. Uh, yeah, well, if you can find someone for me to interview, I would be happy to interview them. As I said, I'll put a call out just then. Cool. Well, we've probably got time to do maybe one more question or maybe two before we sign off today. Um, what's our backlog now? We're still down to 4 months. 4 months. We're getting down to 3. No, not really. Okay, this looks like a long question. What's that? As I said, I recommend getting some advice from me for any specialist pathway application. One issue that I anticipate, we got a 5 years residency course, so that should give you the amount of time that you're required. So that's probably good. When can I apply after the AMC exam? There are no official post AMC 1 jobs. You just apply for spare jobs. They are generally advertised all year. Okay. Anyone who has specialty qualified another country can apply. I'd need to review your individual circumstances. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's kind of brought us to a close today. Remember, I've got the tools over here to help you out. I will increase the limits on these for the free non-sign-upable tools. Yeah, and I will be away next week. So no office hours next Friday. I believe I'm back following Friday. Let me check that. Yeah, I should be here for next Friday. I do have a kind of all dayish meeting, but I think I should be available. So I might see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks all for witching. Thanks all for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in another video.